As I sat in my office, staring at the blank computer screen in front of me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of overwhelming despair. For the past year, I had been working on a project that I believed was going to change the world. It was a new technology that would revolutionize the way we interacted with each other and make communication easier than ever before. But as I looked at the lackluster progress I had made, I realized that I was on the brink of failure. I had poured everything I had into this project. Every waking moment was spent researching, designing, and coding. I had taken out loans, maxed out credit cards, and even convinced friends and family to invest in my dream. But now, it was all on the line. I had to make a decision: keep going and risk everything, or give up and accept defeat. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, my progress remained stagnant. I was working tirelessly, but it seemed like I was spinning my wheels. And as time went on, the weight of my failure became too much to bear. I began to withdraw from my friends and family, feeling like a burden to those around me. I stopped going out, stopped exercising, and stopped taking care of myself. I was consumed by my failure, and it was slowly eating away at me. One day, I received a call from one of my investors. He had seen the lack of progress and wanted to know what was going on. As I tried to explain the setbacks and challenges I had faced, I realized that I was making excuses. I wasn't taking responsibility for my own shortcomings, and it was time to face the harsh reality of my failure. It was a difficult decision, but I decided to shut down the project and return the remaining funds to my investors. I had failed, and I needed to own that failure. As I began to pick up the pieces of my shattered dream, I realized that failure was not the end. It was simply a new beginning. I started to reflect on the lessons I had learned from my failure and how I could apply those lessons to my next venture. I began to reach out to mentors and other successful entrepreneurs, seeking advice and guidance. I read books on resilience and success, learning from the stories of others who had faced failure and come out stronger on the other side. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my confidence and my sense of purpose. I started to see my failure as a blessing in disguise, a wake-up call that forced me to reevaluate my approach and my priorities. And then, one day, a new idea struck me. It was a simpler concept, but one that I believed had the potential to change lives. I started working on it, but this time with a different mindset. I was no longer obsessed with perfection or driven by fear of failure. I was simply committed to doing my best and learning from my mistakes. And as I worked on this new project, I realized that failure was not something to be feared. It was an inevitable part of the journey, and it was up to me to choose how I responded to it. Today, my new venture is thriving, and I am grateful for the lessons I learned from my failure. It was a painful experience, but one that taught me the value of humility, perseverance, and resilience. I am now committed to helping others embrace their failures and use them as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. As I began to rebuild my life after my failure, I started to see the world with new eyes. I realized that so many of us are terrified of failure and go to great lengths to avoid it. We are taught from a young age that success is everything and that failure is something to be ashamed of. But what if we were taught to embrace failure instead? This realization led me to start a new venture, a podcast and YouTube channel called Embracing Failure. My goal was to share stories of people who had faced failure and come out stronger on the other side. I wanted to create a space where failure was not taboo, but something that we could talk about openly and honestly. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life reached out to share their stories of failure and resilience. I interviewed entrepreneurs who had gone bankrupt and rebuilt their businesses from scratch. I spoke with artists who had failed multiple times before finally achieving success. And I talked to everyday people who had faced personal setbacks and found the strength to move forward. Through these conversations, I realized that failure is not a one-time event, but a process. It's something that we all experience, and it's something that we can all learn from. Failure can be a catalyst for growth and change, but only if we are willing to embrace it. One of the most powerful interviews I conducted was with a woman named Sarah. She had lost her job and her home in the same month and was struggling to make ends meet. She felt like a failure and was too ashamed to reach out to her friends and family for help. But then, Sarah had an epiphany. She realized that she had been defining herself by her job and her possessions, rather than by who she was as a person. She started volunteering at a local charity and found a new sense of purpose and fulfillment. Sarah's story resonated with so many people who had experienced similar setbacks. She showed that failure does not define us, it's simply a part of our journey. And it's up to us to choose how we respond to it. Another interview that stood out to me was with a man named Tom. He had started a business that he was passionate about, but it had failed miserably. He was left with a massive amount of debt and felt like he had let everyone down. But instead of giving up, Tom decided to use his experience to help others. He started a consulting business that helped other entrepreneurs avoid the same mistakes he had made. And he found that his failure had given him a unique perspective and set of skills that he would not have had otherwise. Tom's story showed that failure can be a gift. It can teach us valuable lessons and give us the tools we need to succeed in the future. Through these stories and many others, I began to realize that failure is not something to be feared or ashamed of. It's simply a part of life. And if we embrace it and learn from it, we can use it to become stronger and more resilient. In conclusion, failure is not the end, it's simply a new beginning. It's up to us to choose how we respond to it. We can let it defeat us, or we can use it as an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. My own failure taught me the value of resilience and humility, and it led me to create a platform where others can share their stories and inspire others to embrace failure as a part of the journey. So, let's talk about failure. Let's share our stories, learn from each other, and embrace the challenges that life throws our way.